In the United States, some of the most tightly controlled prison environments operate on a model of near-total isolation. Facilities classified as supermax are designed to separate individuals not only from the public but from each other. Movement is limited. Contact is minimized. Time is measured in routine rather than variation. In these units, individuals can spend up to 22 to 24 hours a day inside a single cell. The cells are typically constructed of poured concrete. Surfaces are fixed in place. Beds, desks, and seating are integrated into the structure. Personal possessions are restricted to a small number of approved items, often limited to basic hygiene materials, legal documents, and a few reading materials when permitted. Doors remain closed. Interaction occurs through controlled mechanisms. Meals are delivered through slots. Communication with staff is brief and procedural. In many cases, direct physical contact is avoided entirely. The design is intentional. According to reports from the Federal Bureau of Prisons and State Correctional Systems, these environments are used to house individuals classified as high risk. This classification can include those with histories of violence within institutions, escape attempts, or confirmed leadership roles in organized prison gangs. Gang affiliation is one of the primary reasons individuals are placed in these conditions. Correctional authorities have long documented that certain prison gangs maintain influence beyond the general population. These groups can operate across multiple facilities, using coded communication, coordinated actions, and established hierarchies. In response, isolation has been used as a method to disrupt communication and limit organizational control. The separation is physical, but its effects extend further. Medical and psychological assessments conducted over decades have documented the impact of prolonged isolation. Studies referenced by the National Institute of Justice and various academic institutions describe consistent patterns among individuals held in long-term segregation. These patterns can include difficulty concentrating, disrupted sleep cycles, heightened sensitivity to sound, and changes in perception. In some cases, individuals report experiencing distortions in time. The absence of environmental variation contributes to this effect. Artificial lighting remains constant. External cues such as daylight or weather are removed. The passage of hours is not marked by changes in surroundings, but by scheduled events. Meals arrive at fixed intervals. Recreation, when permitted, is conducted in isolation. Individuals may be escorted alone to small enclosed spaces, often referred to as recreation cages or exercise yards. These areas are typically surrounded by high walls or mesh fencing, limiting visibility beyond the immediate enclosure. The duration is controlled. The return to the cell is routine. For individuals identified as gang affiliates, these conditions can last for extended periods. Official records from several state systems, including California and Texas, have documented cases where individuals remained in segregated housing for years, sometimes decades, under administrative review processes tied to gang validation status. Gang validation is based on specific criteria. Correctional agencies rely on documented evidence such as tattoos, written materials, communication records, and verified associations. Once validated, individuals may be assigned to specialized housing units designed to restrict their ability to communicate with other members. The intention is containment. However, documented accounts indicate that communication does not fully cease. Investigations and court records have shown that some gang structures adapt to restrictions. Messages can be passed through indirect channels, including coded language in letters, legal correspondence, or interactions during controlled movements. This ongoing dynamic has shaped how isolation units are managed. Surveillance is continuous. Cameras monitor corridors and, in many cases, the interior of cells. Staff conduct regular checks at defined intervals. Logs are maintained to record movement, behavior, and compliance with institutional rules. Every action is documented. Within this environment, routine becomes the primary structure of daily life. Wake-up times are fixed. Meals follow a schedule. Counts are conducted multiple times a day to verify presence. Any deviation from expected behavior is noted. Opportunities for variation are limited. Programs, when available, are often conducted through cell-front interactions or via closed-circuit systems. Educational materials may be delivered in printed form. Participation is monitored and recorded. For individuals with confirmed gang affiliations, access to group-based programming is often restricted. The rationale is consistent across institutions. Limiting contact reduces the potential for coordination. At the same time, the conditions of isolation have been the subject of ongoing legal and policy debates. Court cases in multiple jurisdictions have examined the duration and conditions of segregated confinement. Some rulings have led to reforms, including periodic reviews of placement status and adjustments to the criteria for continued isolation. Despite these changes, the core structure remains in place in many facilities. The cell, the door, the schedule. For those identified as members of the most organized and influential prison gangs in the United States, this environment is not temporary. It is a controlled space designed to interrupt networks that extend beyond the walls. Inside, time is measured not by events but by repetition. And beyond the corridor, the systems that place them here continue to operate. Entry into a high-security prison begins with classification. Every individual is assessed. The process is structured and documented. It relies on criminal history, behavior during prior incarceration, known associations, and observable indicators. Among these indicators, gang affiliation is treated as a significant factor. Correctional systems across the United States maintain formal procedures for identifying members of prison gangs. These procedures are not based on a single element. Instead, they require a combination of verified criteria. Documents from state departments of corrections and federal guidelines outline the categories used in this process. Tattoos are one of the most visible markers. Certain symbols, numbers, or patterns have been documented over time as identifiers linked to specific groups. These markings are recorded during intake. Photographs are taken. Descriptions are entered into databases. The process is methodical, intended to create a permanent record that can be referenced across facilities. But tattoos alone are not considered sufficient. Validation requires additional evidence. This can include written materials found in possession, such as letters or drawings containing coded language or recognized symbols. It may also involve documented communication with known gang members, either inside or outside the institution. In some cases, information is provided through confidential sources. Correctional policies allow for the use of informants, though this practice has been subject to legal scrutiny. Courts have required that such information be corroborated, ensuring that classification decisions are supported by multiple forms of evidence. The outcome of this process is designation. Once validated as a gang member or associate, an individual's status is entered into institutional records. This designation influences housing, movement, and access to programs. It also determines the level of supervision. In high-security environments, validated gang members are often separated from the general population. The separation is not based solely on past actions, but on the potential for organized activity within the institution. This approach is grounded in documented patterns. Correctional authorities have reported that certain prison gangs maintain structured hierarchies, with defined roles and communication channels. These structures can persist even under restrictive conditions. Leadership positions are recognized internally within these groups. Investigations by state and federal agencies have identified systems of rank, where orders can be transmitted through intermediaries. These findings are based on intercepted communications, seized documents, and testimony presented in court proceedings. The presence of this structure is one of the reasons classification carries long-term consequences. Once assigned, gang validation is not easily reversed. Policies in several jurisdictions require individuals to demonstrate disengagement over extended periods. This process, often referred to as debriefing, involves providing detailed information about the gang's operations. Participation is voluntary, but it carries implications. Those who choose to debrief may be relocated for their safety. Records indicate that individuals who have provided information about gang activities can face significant risk if returned to environments where those groups are present. For this reason, the decision to debrief is complex. Some systems have introduced alternative pathways such as step-down programs. These programs are designed to transition individuals out of long-term segregation through monitored phases, based on behavior and compliance. Documentation from states like California shows that these programs include regular evaluations. Progress is measured through conduct reports, participation in available programming, and adherence to institutional rules. Movement between phases is gradual, and each stage involves increased levels of interaction. However, not all individuals enter these programs. For those who remain validated and classified as active members, restrictions continue. Mail is monitored. Visits are controlled. Telephone access, when permitted, is subject to review. These measures are intended to limit the ability to coordinate activities beyond the facility. Despite these controls, investigations have shown that some gangs maintain connections outside prison walls. Federal prosecutions have documented cases where incarcerated individuals communicated with associates in the community, influencing criminal activity through indirect channels. These cases often rely on recorded communications and financial transaction records. The existence of these networks reinforces the emphasis on classification. Within the institution, the designation shapes daily life. Housing assignments are determined by status. Movement is scheduled to avoid contact with rival groups. Even within restricted units, separation protocols are enforced to prevent interaction between individuals identified as members of different gangs. This level of control is not static. Classification is reviewed periodically. Committees evaluate updated information, including behavior reports and any new intelligence gathered by staff. Adjustments can be made, but the threshold for change is defined by policy. The system operates on documentation. Every designation, every review, every decision is recorded. The result is a structured approach to managing individuals whose affiliations are considered a risk to institutional order. Inside this framework, identity is not self-declared. It is assigned, verified, and maintained through a process designed to limit uncertainty. And once recorded, it follows the individual through every stage of confinement. Inside U.S. correctional systems, prison gangs are not treated as informal groupings. They are documented as structured organizations. This classification is based on accumulated evidence gathered over decades. Correctional intelligence units at both state and federal levels maintain detailed records of these groups, including their origins, identifiers, and operational patterns. The documentation is consistent. Gangs such as the Mexican Mafia, Aryan Brotherhood, Black Guerrilla Family, Texas Syndicate, and others have been identified in official reports as having defined hierarchies. These hierarchies are not theoretical. They have been established through court records, internal investigations, and intercepted communications. Leadership roles are a central feature. Federal indictments and state prosecutions have described positions such as shot callers, or key holders, individuals who are recognized within the group as decision makers. Orders attributed to these roles have been documented in legal proceedings, often supported by recorded conversations or written correspondence. The structure allows continuity. Even when members are transferred between facilities or placed in isolation, the organization can persist. Communication is adapted rather than eliminated. Correctional reports have identified multiple methods used to maintain contact. Written correspondence is one of the most common. Letters may contain coded language, symbols, or references that appear routine but carry specific meaning within the group. Intelligence units are trained to recognize these patterns. Materials are reviewed, copied, and stored as part of ongoing investigations. Telephone communication is another channel. In facilities where calls are permitted, systems are in place to record and monitor conversations. Law enforcement agencies have used these recordings in prosecutions, linking incarcerated individuals to coordinated activities. In some cases, these activities extend beyond the prison. Federal cases have documented instances where gang members directed operations in the community while incarcerated. These cases often involve narcotics distribution, financial transactions, or acts of violence carried out by associates outside the facility. The connection between inside and outside is not incidental. It is a recognized feature of certain groups. Law enforcement agencies, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, have classified some prison gangs as security threat groups with national or regional influence. This classification reflects the documented ability of these organizations to operate across institutional boundaries. Within prisons, structure is reinforced through rules. These rules are not formally recognized by the institution, but they are consistently referenced in investigative reports and testimony. They govern behavior, communication, and internal discipline. Violations of these internal rules have been documented in multiple cases. Court records describe incidents where individuals were targeted for failing to follow directives or for cooperating with authorities. These accounts are based on evidence presented during trials, including witness testimony and physical documentation. The existence of internal enforcement mechanisms is one reason correctional systems prioritize separation. Housing decisions are influenced by intelligence assessments. Individuals identified as leaders or active participants may be placed in specialized units designed to limit their ability to communicate. Movement is scheduled to avoid contact with both rival groups and their own affiliates. Despite these measures, intelligence units continue to track activity. Information is collected continuously. Confiscated materials are analyzed. Patterns are identified. Databases are updated. This process is ongoing. It is not limited to a single facility. Information is shared across jurisdictions, allowing agencies to build a broader picture of gang activity. This coordination is supported by formal agreements between state and federal systems. The goal is consistency. A designation in one system is often recognized in another. This continuity ensures that classification decisions follow the individual, regardless of location. Within this framework, the presence of a prison gang is not defined by visible gatherings or overt displays. It is defined by documented connections. A name in a report. A symbol in a letter. A recorded conversation. Each piece contributes to a larger record. For correctional staff, this record informs daily operations. For investigators, it provides a basis for enforcement. And for those identified within it, it becomes part of their institutional identity. The structure is not visible in a single moment. It is assembled over time through documentation, verification, and repetition. Inside the system, it is treated as a persistent reality. And its presence shapes decisions that extend far beyond the walls of any one facility. Time inside high-security confinement is not measured in events. It is measured in duration. For individuals identified as members of prison gangs, that duration is often extended by policy. Placement in restrictive housing is not defined by a fixed sentence. It is determined by classification status, behavior, and ongoing assessments conducted by institutional review bodies. Records from multiple state correctional systems show that individuals have remained in segregated housing for prolonged periods. In California, prior to reforms introduced in the 2010s, some individuals spent more than a decade in security housing units based on gang validation status. Reviews were conducted periodically, but release from these units required either a change in classification or participation in structured programs designed to demonstrate disengagement. These conditions have been the subject of legal challenge. In 2015, a settlement in a federal class action case led to significant changes in how gang validation was used to justify indefinite placement in solitary confinement within the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. The agreement introduced limits on the use of indefinite segregation based solely on gang affiliation and expanded step-down programs as an alternative pathway. Similar reviews have taken place in other jurisdictions. Policies have been revised to include clearer timelines, more frequent evaluations, and additional oversight. However, the underlying structure of restrictive housing remains in use, particularly for individuals classified as posing ongoing security risks. Within these units, routine continues without variation. Daily schedules are consistent. Counts are conducted at regular intervals. Meals are delivered through secured openings. Movement is authorized, escorted, and recorded. The predictability is intentional. It reduces uncertainty within the institution. At the same time, the absence of variation has been documented as a defining feature of long-term confinement. Medical literature and correctional health reports have described the effects of prolonged exposure to this environment. These reports are based on clinical observations and standardized assessments conducted within correctional settings. Findings are consistent across studies. Extended isolation is associated with cognitive and sensory changes. Sleep patterns may become irregular. Attention can become difficult to sustain. Some individuals report increased sensitivity to sound or light, even within controlled environments. These observations have informed ongoing policy discussions. Professional organizations, including the American Correctional Association and medical associations, have issued guidelines recommending limits on the duration of solitary confinement, particularly for vulnerable populations. Implementation of these guidelines varies. Correctional systems balance these considerations against institutional safety requirements. For individuals classified as active members of organized prison gangs, the determination often rests on risk assessment. This assessment is based on documented behavior, intelligence reports, and classification history. It is reviewed by committees composed of correctional staff, administrators, and, in some cases, mental health professionals. Each review results in a decision: continue placement, modify conditions, or initiate transition. Transition, when it occurs, is gradual. Step-down programs are structured in phases. Each phase introduces limited increases in interaction, privileges, or movement. Progression depends on compliance with institutional rules and participation in available programming. Documentation is central to this process. Behavioral reports are recorded daily. Program participation is tracked. Any incident is logged and reviewed. The record becomes the basis for future decisions. For those who do not enter or complete these programs, placement may continue. The system does not operate on assumption. It operates on recorded evidence. Within this framework, identity remains fixed until documentation supports change. Gang affiliation, once validated, is not easily removed from the record. It follows the individual through transfers between facilities, influencing classification at each stage. This continuity is designed to maintain consistency in management. It also extends the duration of restrictive conditions. Beyond the institution, the effects of long-term confinement do not end at release. Studies examining individuals who have spent extended periods in isolation have identified challenges in adjustment. These findings are based on post-release interviews, supervision reports, and clinical evaluations. They describe difficulties in environments that require sustained social interaction or exposure to unstructured settings. These outcomes are part of the broader record. They are considered in ongoing discussions about the role and limits of isolation in correctional systems. Inside the corridor, the conditions remain constant. The doors, the schedule, the documentation. Each element is part of a system designed to manage individuals identified as members of the most organized prison gangs in the United States. A system built on separation, maintained through routine, and measured over time.